Hey guys, what is up? Welcome to my channel if you're new here. Welcome back if you're not. Today I'm going to be showing you all the books that I read in 2022 and what I thought about them. Let's get started. I love reading, and the past 2 years I think I've had on my resolutions to read a certain amount of books every year, and I met my goal for this past year because I think I said I want to read 12. Honestly, I should probably go back and watch my resolutions video to figure that out, but I'm pretty sure I said 12, and I read 14 books this year, which I know compared to a lot of people like Haley Pham or Steph Bower, I don't know exactly how to say her name, but that's not very much. But for somebody who is a full-time college student and has a job and is trying to do social media, and like, I'm pretty busy. So 14 books, in my opinion, is pretty good. I'm proud of that. I met my goal. This year I want to read 24 books. I have 6 coming in the mail currently, and I have like 3 or 4 on my shelf that I haven't read yet. The first book that I'm going to show you is not one that I would normally show you. Oren and I got it as a gift for our wedding. It's called The 5 Love Languages, The Secret to Love That Lasts by Gary Chapman. This book obviously is all about the 5 love languages, but what I really liked about it was it gave a lot of examples and stories, and the main point of it was a lot of people love their significant other in the way that they want to be loved, and not the way that their significant other wants to be loved. So for example, if your love language was physical touch and your partner's was acts of service, a lot of times they would love you in acts of service and you would love them in physical touch, and it just doesn't always like work out like that. And so it's all about learning the different love languages, and this is a nonfiction book, obviously. I almost never read nonfiction books, but this one I got all the way through. I was interested in. In the back, there's a little quiz. It helps you figure out your love languages in order. So yeah, I definitely recommend reading this book if you are in a relationship, looking to be in a relationship, honestly, anything. This is a great book. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I definitely recommend. For a nonfiction book, I'd give this like a 4.5 or 5 out of 5. Why is all the heavy equipment deciding to go down the road right now? The books right now aren't really in any particular order. I will have my top 3 at the end. The second book that I read this year is Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson. The cover, I love this cover. I just think that's so cute. This book is about a girl named Taylor who used to go to a lake house every single summer, and she had 2 best friends there, Henry and Lucy, and then something happened and they were like no longer friends, and she hasn't been back there since. But they found out that her dad has terminal cancer and he wants to spend this last summer as a family at the lake house. So it's a book about her, like, her and her family and figuring that out, and about kind of like a second chance romance and also a second chance friendship. Obviously, there is a little bit romance in the book, but the main part of the book is kind of finding herself in all of these aspects and forgiving herself for what she did in the past. I will give this one a 4. It's very like young adult. It's a great book if you want to start getting into bigger books, but like still want something sweet and young adult. The next book that I read is 14 Ways to Die by Vincent Ralph. I honestly am a sucker for a good murder mystery books. I love romance, I love murder mystery. Like, those are almost the only books that I read. This one is about a girl named Jess whose mother was murdered by the serial killer called the Magpie Man. She was actually his first victim, and now she's 17 years old. She signed up for like a reality TV show that follows her throughout a week. It shows all of your messages, it follows you to school, it follows you all sorts of places. But her motive behind it is because she wants the Magpie Man to see it, and she wants him to come after her so she can catch him. There's friendships in this book. The killer is not who I thought it would be. I just thought that the mystery and the suspense was really, really good in this book, and I would 100% recommend it. So I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book is another murder mystery book. It's The Girl I Used to Be by April Henry. This book does kind of have the same like background theme as the last one. She was the only one that survived the scene when she was 3 years old, and she was put into social services because she didn't have any other family around. She, I believe, got out of them when she was 17, maybe 17 or 18, and changed her name completely. Like, she didn't want anything to do with this town, and then eventually she comes back to this town and tries to uncover this murder. I think there's a little bit of romance in this book. It's like obviously very subtle, but she does make friends. She finds out who the murderer is. This one surprised me a little bit too. My best friend read this book and she absolutely loved it, but she doesn't normally read books like this. I just thought it was a little bit rushed. It's not a very long book. I liked it and I thought it was a good book, and I think it would be really good for like junior high, early high school. I'm gonna give this one a 3 out of 5 just because I wish there was a little bit more like character development and you just got to like know the characters better, I guess. Like I said, I think it felt just a little bit rushed just because of how short it is, but overall it was a really good book, and if you're looking to get in mystery type books, this would be a great one for you to start with. Number 6 is a book that blew up on TikTok. You probably immediately know what it is. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I did enjoy this book. I finished this book very quickly. I got really into this book. It does have some like abuse in it, and it deals with that. So if you guys like don't want to read a heavier book, I would not read this book. And it was the first book that ever really made me feel the way that it did because it was so heavy and it was so... I'm sure that most of you, if you're watching this, know what this book's about, so I'm not going to go into it, but basically this girl, Lily, moves to New York City, meets this guy named Ryle, has a lot of trauma from her past, and she also loved this guy in the past. His name was Atlas. Atlas is in this book. She moves to Boston, not New York City, and he's there. He has a restaurant there. And so it's this kind of like love triangle, but there's a lot of underlying themes in it too, like I said, abuse and other things like that. So if you don't want a heavy read, I wouldn't recommend this. This is a really good book. I do think it got a little bit overhyped just because of the way that it made me feel, and because it was the first book I'd ever read that had like realistic aspects in it. I am going to give it a 5 out of 5. The next 2 books are part of a 5-book series. They can also be read as standalones, but it's a lot better if you read them in the right order. It's a series called The Kings of Rittenhouse Prep by Maya Hughes. Each book follows a different player in this friend group. They all played hockey together in high school. And I do love the 2 books that I've read because of the fact that all these players, these 5 main players, their names are Declan, Heath, Colm, Ford, and Emmett, but each one shows up in the other books. So you really get to know these guys and know the friendship of these guys and like how much they care about each other, and I absolutely love that aspect. But the first one in the series is Shameless King. It's about Declan and a girl named Mac. It's an enemies to lovers trope, which I really actually enjoyed. I don't know if I'd ever read one before this book, but I really enjoyed it. The books aren't too long. They're about 300 to 400 pages, so not too long. Basically, McKenna and him in high school were enemies. They wanted nothing to do with each other, and then they ended up going to the same college and kind of having to run into each other. She was his like study partner because on the hockey team he needed to keep his grades up. So it's also kind of like a forced proximity type thing. Obviously it's a romance book, so we know what happens in the end. This book has a lot of tension, which I really, really love in a book, and I love like a slow burn, which this one also kind of has. I really, really liked this book. I would give this one like a 4.5 out of 5 stars. This one is Reckless King. It's about Heath. Basically, Heath and this girl named Kara get together one night. It was a great night, and then they do it like a few more times, but I did not enjoy this one as much. I think that's a lot of personal preferencing. There's a lot of tension in this book and a lot of spice in this book. It's a different kind of tension. It's we absolutely want to be all over each other, but we have to keep our hands off of each other. Like in the first few chapters, they I don't want to say fall in love, but they like get together quite a few times. Like they have great times together, they love it, they want to keep seeing each other, and then she ends up being his TA for his independent studies, and if people find out about that, it can like ruin her career. His grade could get nullified, I think is what they called it, and he wouldn't be able to play hockey. He's supposed to go pro next season. It wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be reading the first book, but I think she's obviously trying to do all different types of tropes with it. It's still a good book. I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I have is That Weekend by Kara Thomas. I absolutely loved this book. I would give it like a 4.8 out of 5 stars. I don't want to give it 5 out of 5. Honestly, it might be 5 out of 5. I love Kara Thomas. She has another book coming out this May, and I'm so excited for it. I will probably be reading it right after it's released. I started reading her books in high school, and I've read almost every single one of them. She is a mystery writer, a crime mystery writer. This book is about 3 friends, Claire, Kat, and Jessie. Kat and Jessie are a couple. Claire is just Kat's best friend. They go on a camping trip together in the mountains, and one day, I believe while they're hiking, something happens, and Claire wakes up. Some random like hiker found her. She has a concussion. She wakes up. She has no idea. She does not remember what happened that day. Kat and Jessie are missing for, I think, maybe like almost a year they're missing. And it's her trying to piece together what happened. Everybody thought they were dead. Their bodies were searched for months and were not found. So this is a book about her trying to figure out what happened. There is a big plot twist in this book, which I really, really enjoyed. It wasn't like any of the other Kara Thomas books I read because of the plot twist. Even after I read it and finished it, I just like kept thinking about it. It was so good. I really, really recommend this book, and honestly, anything by Kara Thomas, because she is such a good writer. The next 2 that I have are also by the same author who I have read other books from before. Anytime she comes out with a new one, I always pick it up. I have another one on the way to my house right now. The first one that I read this year is The Cousins by Karen McManus. Once again, if you haven't read a Karen McManus book, I strongly recommend it. This book is about Millie, Aubrey, and Jonah. They are cousins. Their grandmother, who they haven't talked to in almost their whole life, sends them a letter. Not their parents, sends them a letter and asks them to come stay at her like huge mansion for the summer for their, I don't remember if it's an internship, but they do have to work. They have to work there. A lot of things in this book like just didn't add up to the cousins, because she completely cut their parents off after something happened, and now all of a sudden she wanted to get close with the 3 cousins. And they all kind of just think that's a little bit weird. The cousins barely know each other. They, obviously this book, they do start becoming friends, and they start figuring out this mystery behind what happened to our grandma to make her completely switch and turn on us. The cousins didn't really want to go, but their parents wanted to get back into grandma's good graces for the inheritance, and so the cousins were kind of forced to go. And I love the fact that like the family started forming relationships and working together to figure out what happened. And I don't know, it was like a sweet book in that instance, but obviously it's like a mystery book, so there's a lot of suspense as well. I would give this book 4 stars. The next one by Karen McManus is You'll Be the Death of Me. This one I really liked. I would probably give this one 4.5 stars. This one is about 3 friends, Ivy, Mateo, and Cal. They all used to be close. Something happened. They weren't close anymore, but one day in high school, they all just kind of ran into each other, and for all different reasons, they really didn't want to go to school that day, and they ended up skipping. And while they were skipping, they saw another student leaving. The student was kind of enemies with Ivy, and they decided to follow him into Boston and see what he was doing on his day off, why was he skipping, etc., etc. And they end up walking onto his death scene. It happened so quickly. They weren't in the room when he died, but they found him literally right after. So they have to piece together all these things, and each one of them kind of has secrets to hide. They all have connections to him, so obviously it would look really suspicious that they were all there that day. Everybody in the school knows that Ivy and this guy are enemies, so obviously all the blame immediately gets shifted towards her because she was in Boston around that area when it happened. Said I recommend seriously any book by Karen McManus, especially this one. This one's newer. It's really, really good. I think that you'll love it if you like type of mystery crime books. Now it's time for my top 3 books. Unfortunately, I don't have the physical copies of the top 2 because I lent them to my cousin. She's on a long trip and wanted something to read. But number 3 I do have. Number 3 is The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This book is so cute. It's about a girl named Bree and a guy named Nathan. Nathan is a quarterback in the NFL. Bree is a ballet dancer. She owns her own ballet studio. Obviously he is like mondo rich. She's struggling in LA. Her rent gets raised for her ballet studio. It's a low-income studio because she wants to provide a really good dance experience for kids who can't always pay for that in LA or other places. And her heart is just so big. She's the sweetest person. She works so hard, and her rent gets raised again, so he buys the whole studio for her. But the twist is that Bree has been in love with him since high school. In high school, they became best friends. He was the super popular kid. She wasn't. They became best friends. And then she had a really, really bad accident that ruined her ballet career. She was going to go to Juilliard. She couldn't do that anymore. Ruined it. She cut him off completely, and then they both ended up in LA. Like 4 years later, after college, they both ended up in LA, ran into each other. It's like time hadn't moved at all, and they were best friends again. But what Bree doesn't know is that Nathan is secretly in love with her too. And so there's so much tension because neither one of the characters think, it's almost like you want to yell at them because they're just being so dumb. But neither one of the characters think that the other ones has feelings for them, but their feelings are so strong. This is all on the back of the book. Like, I promise you I'm not giving you spoilers right now. She ends up drinking with the team one night and going to the bathroom and spilling her guts to a TMZ reporter, and then the story is published and she has to be like, oh, I didn't mean it, blah, blah, blah. Like, you just want to yell at them throughout the whole entire book. There's so much tension. This is a really, really good book for a young adult audience too. There's no spice in it. Oh, it's so good. I can't even explain. Yeah, so obviously it's like a best friends to lovers trope, and it's also a convenience dating trope, which I also kind of like. That's all I'm gonna say about it. This book, honestly, 5 out of 5 stars. I loved this book. My top 3 are all 5 out of 5 stars. My next book, I will put a picture of it up here. It's called Terms and Conditions. When I read the book, I did not realize that it was part of a series. It's called the Dreamland Billionaire series. Luckily, they are standalones. You don't have to read every single one of them if you don't want to. It's about 3 brothers, obviously finding love, their romance stories. Declan is super grouchy, but in order to accept his grandfather's inheritance, he has to get married and produce an heir. His assistant finds him this woman who's willing to do this. They sign a contract. Declan, on the night of their engagement party to announce this whole thing, to announce their relationship, he ends up making her angry and she stomps off. Everybody's there to figure out who Declan is engaged to, and Iris, his assistant, just steps up and was like, I'll do it, because she has worked so hard on him. She's put so much work into him. She doesn't want him to fail. She doesn't really want to marry him, but it's not like she is secretly in love with him or anything, but she was just like, I'll do it. I volunteer. This isn't the worst thing that can happen to me. Like, whatever. I'll get some of the money too. This will be fine. Obviously, it's a romance book. We know what happens. But this book, when you talk about slow burn romance, so much tension. It shows it from Declan's perspective and Iris's perspective. It is so good. The writing in this book, the style of this book, like, it's a convenience marriage trope. It's a grumpy time sunshine trope. It's, oh my gosh, it's so good. And Declan is like developing this soft spot for Iris. You see him do things for her that like he wouldn't do for anybody else. Throughout the book, you learn a little bit more about their histories and their past. Declan's mom died when he was little. I think he was a teenager, and they were very close. His dad was abusive towards him and his brothers, so that's why he wants the inheritance. He wants his dad out of the business. I give this book a 5 out of 5 stars. Please, please, please read it if you have never read this book, because it is truly so good. I could not put it down. It's a thick book and it took me less than 2 days to read. It's so good. I 100% recommend it. My number one book though is The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata, I think is how you say it. I don't have the book in front of me right now, but I will put a picture up here. This one is about an NFL athlete and his assistant. It's a marriage of convenience book. Again, he's from Canada. He needs his, I think it's a green card is what they call it. He needs that, so he needs to get married for 5 years. But in the beginning of the book, she quits the job because she hears his manager and him talking about her in a not very good way, even though she puts so much work into him and does absolutely everything for him that she needs to. Maybe like a week later, a few days later, he shows up at her doorstep begging her to come back, begging her to marry him. Eventually she does, so they have to pretend like they're a couple. This is, if you want a slow burn romance, this is the perfect book. The perfect book. It was so good. Some people say it's a little bit too long. It's over 600 pages, but I think that just added to it. It was so good. There really wasn't much spice in this book until the very, very end. There's a lot of things about the book that she grows up in. She grows up, she matures, she finds out who she wants to be, but also while she falls in love with this guy, and goosebumps. Like, it just gives me goosebumps. I had butterflies reading this book. It was so, so, so good. This is editing me here. I'm watching this back and I realize I did not explain it very well. There's a lot of things in the book other than the romance that made me like it. She has a lot of trauma from her past with her family, and she really opens up to him about that. He doesn't open up to anybody. It's more of a grumpy ex-sunshine book as well. He, just like in Terms and Conditions, obviously has this soft spot for her that he doesn't always let show, and you see it throughout the book, and she opens up about things in her past, and he starts feeling very protective over her. The book also actually made me laugh out loud sometimes. One thing that I really liked about it, because I kind of think like this too, she would say something, she's a little bit awkward, the main character, and she would say something, and in the book you could obviously like see what she's thinking, and she'd be like, stupid, stupid, stupid. Like, it's just a funny, the writing of this book was amazing. I just wanted to hop on here and say those things because I forgot to say them then. My camera was running out of battery and I just wanted to hurry up and finish. But I do definitely want to add those things in. Go read the book. It's so good. I even read it again because Oren was reading it because he wanted to read a romance book, and I was like, read this one. And I'd like pick up where he is when he was gone and like skim through the pages again. So good. 5 out of 5 stars. 10 out of 10. I absolutely love it. That's all that I have for you guys today. Thank you so much. I will do this again at the end of next year, and hopefully I have 24 plus books in that stack. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you got some book inspo. I hope that I explained them well. Sometimes I think I'm explaining something well and then I don't, so hopefully that didn't happen. But once again, thank you so much for watching this video. It really means the world to me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!